Hey everybody, it is Carrie Marshall. I am a certified master coach, and today I am going to teach you my system called Summer of Independence. So if you're anything like me, you don't want your kids living with you when they're 22, 25 years old. Now, you might have littles at home, but ultimately we want our kids to become independent. I remember when I was in a church group and there were girls that I was teaching that were graduating from high school. And so I thought it would be fun about this time, April, May. I thought it would be fun for one of our activities to talk about just little things that they would need when they were going away for college. So I thought it would be just simple little techniques and tools. Well, the girls came and I talked about cooking, cleaning, and setting a schedule for yourself. Little did I know that out of the 10 girls that were there, only one of them actually knew how the dishwasher worked. Only one of them knew how to start and do laundry. Maybe two or three of them could make top ramen, but when it came to actually going and buying and using a budget and things like that, there was probably only three of them that could do that. I was blown away. Now, at this time, I was also teaching my own little kids little things that they could do to help me out because I, at the time, was nannying. So I had six littles at home. I had my two oldest that were in kindergarten and preschool. And then I had four, one of mine, and then my sister's three kids from newborn up to just like 4 years old. So I had a lot going on. So at that time, I thought to myself, I was thinking about this group of girls who were 17, but I was also thinking about my littles. And I thought, wow, how am I going to get my 5-year-old to be independent by the time she's 17? And that's when the Summer of Independence came up. So I'm excited to teach this to you for so many reasons. But what I want you to do right now is I want you to grab a pen and paper or pull up notes on your phone or on your computer, whatever you're watching, because this is going to be interactive. I do not want you to get done and just consume. I really want you to take notes, and I want you to do this system because you can get something going right now so that you're not having to sit down and do this again. Now, it might just be a start, but a start is better than nothing. So grab that pen and paper and we're going to get going. So oftentimes what we do as parents is we do more for our children than we probably should be doing. And it comes from a lot of different things. It comes from societal things. It comes from our own thoughts. It comes from just a need to get things done because we can do it more efficiently, faster, better, all of that. And so oftentimes what we'll do is we'll take over for our children and do things that really they can do. But what this has created for our society, for our family units, and for our children individually is it's created three different things. Number one is entitlement. Our children feel entitled to have everything done for them. And I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and they say that this even shows up in the classroom. One of my teacher friends said that a little kid raised his hand and he's like, "Can you just come and do this for me?" Little guy, like a first grader. And she's like, "No, this is what we're learning how to do." And he's like, "I guess I could call my mom." Like he was like trying to think of how someone else could do this for him. So that's the first thing that I see is that when we continue to do things for our children all of the time, we create entitlement throughout their whole life. The second thing that we do is we create a space where our kids actually fear a little bit and are concerned that they can't show up for themselves. So they worry about it. They worry that small little things are going to really disrupt their lives because they haven't learned how to do things for themselves. They haven't learned how to fail and learn from it. And so it creates a space where our kids will only do things that they know they can succeed at. Now, I see this with my clients, my adult clients, and it will completely disrupt their lives if they are only showing up for things that they know they can succeed at. So entitlement and then that fear or worry. The third thing that it does is it creates a space where we don't have confident kids. So once again, they're entitled, but they're not very confident. And that's usually the scale that happens is entitlement comes when we don't have confidence of doing it ourselves and figuring it out. We feel entitled to have things given to us or done for us or any of that because of that. I don't think that that's where you want any of your kids to be. If you're like me, you absolutely don't want your kids to be there. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach your kids skills that are going to help them become more independent so that they can learn how to have confidence, have their own back, be a contributing member of their own life, the family unit, and society. And so that they can really start to see that failure is just feedback and that failure is not something to shy away from. And so then it goes out. And so then they can continue to create a system for their own lives where they're showing up and failing and learning and growing. Ultimately, what we want for all of us, whether it's ourselves or our children. All right. Okay. So this is actually pretty funny. I created this PowerPoint for this presentation, but what I found was that it was just really pretty. And like I said, I want this to be not just a great PowerPoint presentation. I want it to be something that you are going to utilize. So the first tip that I'm going to give you is we are going to start to look at ability level, not age. This is crucial because as parents, most of the time we've been taught that our kids should hit milestones at certain places. Now, this can be beneficial, but it can also hinder us when our child doesn't hit that point. We start to worry about them instead of looking at abilities and what they're capable of. So we're going to talk a lot about ability level and not necessarily about age because ability can be different at different ages. Ability can be different based on our own children and their own little personalities and how they come to this earth. So we're going to talk about abilities and not ages. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to think about the ability that your child has. Now, right now, most of you might have multiple children. You actually might have multiple children. You might have stepchildren. You might have a blended family. This might be your grandchildren. I don't know. But I want you to think about the children that you want to do this with. So maybe you have a newborn, not necessarily, you might not want to put your newborn down there, but I want you to think about the kids that you are wanting to teach this to. Write their names down on a piece of paper. So I have 3 children, all girls, and their ages are 15, 13, and 10. And so at this stage, we are going to create, every single summer, right about the beginning of May, I write their names on a piece of paper. So my oldest daughter's name is Ocean. So I have Ocean, Nolly, and Stormy. So those are my girls. So what I want you to do is take a piece of paper and write down every single child's name. So this is the first thing that we want to do is we want to just get like, who are we working with here? So when I had my sister's kids at home, I went ahead and wrote down all of her children's names. And of course I had a little guy, a little baby. So we just kept him off the list because really I didn't need to teach him anything. He's just going to be himself, right? Okay. So we're going to write down all of their names on this piece of paper. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think about that specific child, and I want you to just start with one child. Let's start with your oldest. So write down what would be helpful for this child. What would make a difference in their lives and in your lives if they can do? And I just want to brainstorm. So you could think to yourself like, well, it would be really nice if they could get themselves dressed. Or it would be really helpful if they could actually learn how to like scrape food into a container or into the garbage can and then like put their dishes in the sink. So once again, we're looking at ability, not age, because we could absolutely have a 17-year-old that doesn't know how to do the system in your home of, like I said, dishes or bedrooms or things like that, okay? So I want you to just think about that child specifically and think about a couple of ideas that would make their lives and your lives a little bit easier. So I like to use a scale of 1 to 10 for ability. Now, ability, once again, is going to say, does my child have the ability to do this? So a 1 might say they could, but they don't know how. A 2 might be, well, they can and they do it when I ask them or with help. Number 3 ability would be they know how and they can get it right 50% of the time. Ability 4, they can do it and they do it every so often, right? A little bit more than 50% of the time. And now 5 is they have the ability and they do it most of the time. Now, you'll notice that I talked about ability from 1 to 5. Now, when we start from 6 to 10, we're talking about expectation. Let's take the example of making beds. So when I was teaching my children how to make their beds, I knew that my oldest, Ocean, could make a bed. And she did it about 50% of the time. So one of the times with Summer of Independence, we worked on the ability to get her to a 5. She's doing it every single morning. Well, she did that pretty quickly. She did that in the first couple of weeks. Well, now we're going to talk about expectation. So when we talk about ability, I'm saying, can she put her pillow on the top of her bed? Can she pull her sheet up and straighten it out? Can she take her comforter and pull it up? That's ability. That is like a made bed, right? Now we're going to talk about expectation. I have an expectation that my children can do a little bit better than that. I like to have sheets tucked in. I like to have them know that they change their sheets every week, right? That's now expectation. And so expectation is going to be from 6 to 10. So, and this is really, really crucial. Your expectation, you need to decide what it is for your home. So my beds at my house do not look like hotel beds. I just haven't spent the time. It's not important to me. But one of my clients, that was absolutely like, that was her expectation. And she's like, I really want my kids to learn how to make a really well-made bed where they could go to a hotel and make the bed and it would look amazing. So that would be expectation. So think about your expectation. Now you have a list of a couple of things for one child. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to continue to do this for each child. Now you notice that I haven't said anything about exactly what tasks to do. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But once again, is I want you to think about expectation versus ability. And so as we go through this process, I want you to just rate your child from a 0 to like they have no awareness about how to do this at all, to like a 10, which is they exceed our expectations. They can make that hotel bed that we actually expect in our home. So know that expectations are going to be different, home versus home. My neighbor and I, we are in each other's homes a lot. Our kids are in each other's homes a lot. Very different expectations at both homes, which is amazing, right? But we want to know where that expectation is. And you want to make sure that maybe you want to think about where your expectation is within your family. My husband and I have very different expectations as far as cleaning goes. I have very different techniques than my husband does. He's actually more involved than I am. And so once again, we have to look at our thoughts about expectations even in the home. So we've had the conversation and I've told him, when I teach the kids, this is where we get to. If you would like to go above and beyond, you're absolutely welcome to. But if they hit this expectation, that's not okay to get mad at them because they didn't hit yours. You just haven't put in the work. But that's been really beneficial for us in our home, because when they have been taught by their dad and when they do have the expectation that pots don't go in the dishwasher, I think they do. But when he's taught them how to clean pots by hand, then, and he's told them specifically, now this is the expectation. Now we can adjust and adapt it. Okay. So ability versus expectation. That's the first thing that you want to look at. Now, because I'm a coach, we also want to look at our thoughts about our kids. So maybe you're seeing that your kids are lacking in ability in many areas. Well, it's really going to matter how you show up when you're teaching your kids how to do this. So if you're embarrassed, if you're resentful, if you're a little bit upset, that's absolutely going to translate when you're talking to your kid. So, if your 17-year-old doesn't know how to make a bed and you're like, oh my gosh, just watch this thing. Apparently my kids should know how to do this. And you're really anxious, that absolutely translates to how you interact with your kid. So you might get frustrated. You might tell them that they need to do more. But remember, all we're looking at is ability, and ability is just a neutral circumstance. It doesn't matter where your child is at, it's just neutral. And if we can actually take this into school as well, it makes such a difference. And so just remember that ability and expectation are really going to help you to solidify for yourself, where is my child at? So how do we break this down so that it's not all over the place? Well, what I love to do is I love to break down Summer of Independence into several different sections so that I know what my child is working on. And we want to work on 1 to 2 things in each section. So as you kind of maybe did that little download for your first child, you might say like, they don't put away their clothes, they don't make their bed, they don't do this. And the list might be pretty long. Okay, well, what we want to be able to do is just take a couple of things that you're going to work on. It might take the entire summer. It might take a couple of weeks, but we don't want to overwhelm you and your child by telling them that they need to learn how to do all of the things on the list, because then it just creates this space where we're actually setting up not just for failure, but for quitting. Failure is completely fine. Quitting is something that we actually want to stay away from. Okay. So let's talk about these different sections. So the first section, I like to call it, is personal. So this includes personal hygiene. This maybe even include like their personal space. And when I say personal space, that doesn't mean that like if they share a bedroom, that's not personal space. They absolutely have like their personal clothing, their bed, maybe a cubby downstairs, things like that, that are their personal items. And so that's kind of why I say personal, is we're going to talk about not only hygiene, taking care of your own body, and even sometimes like gratitude, spirituality. We can put all of those on the list when it comes to personal space, personal things. Okay. So that's the first thing that we're going to look at is personal. So we want to pick a couple of things. So for instance, if I had a daughter that would get up and not brush her hair, she's like, it's too hard, I don't like it. And I was like, okay, if she could just learn how to take a comb or a brush through her hair, that would actually be really beneficial. So ability level, 0. Like, well, I should put her like at a 1 or a 2. She could pick up a brush, but then she'd do it like from up here. She'd have knots all over. She'd get about half done and then stop. So I was like, okay, she's at a 1. So how are we going to get her to like a 3 or a 4? So that became one of the things that we would work on, is we would work on brushing hair. Okay. So once again, you're going to pick 1 or 2 things on the list and watch how much you want to do all of them. I promise you 1 to 2 things is going to be beneficial, because like I said, it might not take a full summer to do it, but when they can gain skills 1 at a time, it makes such a difference for them. So personal space. The next is going to be family shared space. Now I call it family shared space because there are going to be different tasks and things that your kids are going to learn when we talk about family shared space. So this could be cleaning. It could be helping in the kitchen, bathrooms, family rooms, front rooms, outdoor spaces. But this can also be ability with what we're talking about. So this could be learning maintenance on those spaces. This could be learning new skills in those spaces. So for instance, it could be learning how to play chess. That's actually where we put family, is we like to put games in there, because that's kind of a family thing that we like to do together in shared spaces. So things like games can also go in family. This could be family time. So let's say that your child doesn't know how to ride a bike. Maybe you want them to. This could be go in family time. So I like to think about family as almost like our cave, which includes almost our space, like our yard and things like that. So when my niece and nephew, they were learning how to swim, and that I would put in our family space. So I'm like, that's a family activity. We want them all to swim really confidently so that we can all be in there and have a good time together. So think about family shared space and then ability level in that area. Now, your family might not like to swim. Maybe you don't do it a lot. Maybe you don't have access to that a lot. And so that might not be on your list. Totally fine. This really needs to be custom to you. So that's going to go on family, kind of family space. And once again, that includes all jobs. For us, I just break down all jobs in family areas. So bathrooms, kitchens, and to kind of get a little bit more specific, I like to have in the kitchen, I like to have all of my kids have jobs in the kitchen. Now, this has been really beneficial is we like to switch jobs so that my children are getting experience in each area. We switch jobs all of the time. And this also includes, now we're going to kind of go over a little bit more into interests. Interests now are going to be things like cooking, which could actually be in the family area, but we like to put it in interests. So cooking, things like that can go in there. Budgeting, entrepreneurship, we put in there, learning new sports. Like I said, it could go into family area, but we like to kind of put it in the interest level. Okay. So we have personal, we have family, and we have interests. So now what we can do is we can start to break down and think about, once again, where do I need help from these kids? And then where do my kids need help? So you might see that your kid is struggling with reading. This is a really great opportunity for you to then think about interests and like, how am I going to incorporate reading into this? So I want you to make the list of your home and things that like each child you would like them to do. Now, once again, the list might be long, but that's okay. You can totally take it and then decide what needs to be done right now. Okay. So that might include things like the dishes, right? Learning and once again, going to ability level. So my children right now don't need to learn how to scrape their food into the trash and wash off their dish and either put it in the sink or in the thing. What they need is consistency. That's what we're working on right now. So we're working in that expectation of about 6 or 7 because they know how to do it. They do it most of the time, but now we're working on consistency and the expectation of getting that done. So we're going to take a break for just a minute because what I want you to do is pause this and I want you to put down, now we have your child's name at the top of the page. Now I want you to put down personal, family, and interests. And I want you to just take a couple of minutes to really look at what this is going to look like, okay? So think about what you want to have happen and what you're going to make this look. Now, I'm going to show you because this is an important part. I want to show you what this looks like because I know that sometimes people are like, well, I want to do it right. There's no right here. What we want is just to make sure that you are doing this in a way that makes sense for your family. So I want to do this along with you because I want you to, I want to show you what this looks like. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And what we're going to do is, like I said, I'm just going to start and put my oldest daughter's name at the top of the list. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put personal, family, and then interests. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking and I'm thinking about my daughter. So she's 15, like I mentioned. And what I'm seeing is that I want to be able to take this and then I want to be able to say, okay, personally, what does Ocean need this summer? And so then I'm going to make the list. So personally, a couple things that Ocean, like we need to talk a little bit more about like let's see, trying to think of like what Ocean. So one of the things that Ocean needs to learn is Ocean needs to learn a little bit more about laundry. So she can do it and her ability level is about a 5 right now. She can do it. She knows how to start it, but she's not doing really great with folding, putting away, or one of the huge things that she needs to learn is how to iron. So that's going to be one of the things that she needs to work on personally. Another thing that we're going to talk about is we're really going to talk about makeup and hair this time because she's once again doing really well. She's like probably a 7, but I know that this next year she's going to want to start wearing makeup to school. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk maybe about and learn how to do like daily makeup if she wants, if that's something that's interesting to her. Okay. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're just kind of writing down a couple of things. Now I've written down 2, but you can make a list that's pretty long. Now, because Ocean is 15, I don't worry about her personal hygiene. I don't really worry about what she's doing with her hair necessarily. I put hair down because she's in that stage of like learning now new techniques and things like that. So we're going to talk about like using a waver on her hair and kind of doing updos and things like that. She knows how to braid her own hair, but like the next level of that. So just kind of make the list. Now, when we talk about family, there's a couple of different things that I absolutely know that we need to work on. One of them is cleaning bathrooms. I would say that she's like a 5 again. She really needs to learn how to, or continue to do, the expectations. And so we call this the 10, what do we call it? The 10 rules or the 10 things. Oh, 10 stars. I was like, what is that called? So what she needs to learn how to do is the 10 stars. And so when we talk about 10 stars in our family, that means that you are hitting that mark that you're hitting the 10 as far as expectation. She can clean a bathroom and she does pretty good, but she's not hitting 10 stars consistently. So that's what we want to teach her this year is the 10 stars. I also want to teach her chess because that's really important to me. And I think that that's a really fun thing. She's learning different things there. And then also, let's see, she definitely needs help with dishes. Dishes, she's about a 7, and we want to, once again, get her to 10 stars. Now, this list can be really long, but what I want to mention, I don't know how many times I've said that here, but it really can get really long. But once again, you want to come back to like, but I don't want to overwhelm and have my child quit. One of the things that Ocean's learning this year is she's learning she already knows how to start a business. She's actually running a business right now, but now we're going to really talk about a business budget and how to actually use a budget in her business where she knows where her overhead is. She knows how to pay people if she's going to get some help. And then also what we want to talk about is paying herself first, which is really important in entrepreneurship when she's learning that. So we're going to talk about business budgeting. She's also really interested in learning more about careers and jobs. And then she also mentioned that she would love to do some more photography, which is part of her business. And so those are some things that we're going to put down there. So we have our list, Ocean's at the top. We have some personal things, some family things, and some interests that she's wanting to do or that I'm actually wanting her to do. Okay. So now what we're going to do, and make the list for yourself. We want to make sure that it's something that is going to make sense for you and your family. Now, I'm going to pause right here before we move on because I want to tell you where I started, because I know that some of you have littles and you're thinking like this, I'm not teaching my kid how to do laundry. Well, you're going to start wherever you're at with your child specifically. So once again, when I had littles at home and I had Ocean as a 5-year-old, we were working on things like picking out clothes herself and dressing herself. And then when she changed into pajamas, making sure that those clothes got in the hamper. Those were the things that we started with. And it's really important, once again, to start with ability level. And so make sure that you're starting with ability level for all of your children. You might have a child that dresses every single day, but then where are you needing the help, or where is the next step for them? So as we talk more specifically, you want to build foundations for children. We can't go and learn how to do, sew a coat, make a coat from scratch if we don't know how to either hand sew or learn a sewing machine. And my kids actually learned how to sew. That's something that we do in our family. So it's important for us. You might not have any desire to have your child sew at all, ever. But for us, that was important. And so we had to start with the basics. I got a little sewing machine. And what I do is I get a piece of paper, because it's not my sewing machine, right? But we get a piece of paper and you can either print off or make little patterns. And that's where we started. So we started with, here's how to sit down at a sewing machine. And then we'd learn about the needle and where to put your fingers. And we did this when they were probably 6 and 7. So one of my nephews is 6. And so he will be learning how to use a sewing machine this year. And so that's how we start, right? We start with ability. Where is the ability at? Now, I want you to really think about those spaces as far as your kids' rooms and shared spaces, because I love to start families off with things like cleaning or picking up after themselves. I remember being a mom that was picking up toys every single evening. Now, I'd gotten the kids to bed and I was exhausted from having 6 littles at home, but then I just felt like I was like taking away time from myself. And then I would go and be with my husband, and then he'd want time and attention. And it just felt like so draining. And so something as easy as teaching my kids to pick up and teaching my nieces and nephews to pick up before their mom came and picked them up was so important. Because what I did was I took a really, really easy task and I included our entire family in it. And so we started, like I said, with, okay, well, when the littles go home with their mama, we need to have everything picked up. And then my kids would, of course, get some more things out. And then we do it again right before dinner. And then we do it again right when they went to bed. Well, that made such a difference for me where they knew how to do it. So I could say, let's pick this up. So let's talk about your role in all of this. You're going to have that ability and you're going to say, okay, well, we want to go from a 0 to a 3. Well, this is going to involve you. So when we're talking about Summer of Independence, you want to look at each child and you want to think about, how am I going to sit and either teach them as a group or teach them individually? So it is a little bit time intensive at first. Number 1, because you need to do the teaching, and number 2, because you need to be the lifeguard. Now, when I talk about lifeguarding in Summer of Independence, think about that lifeguard that's sitting up above everybody else and just kind of like perusing the area. Now, I know from going to the public pool a lot that there are some lifeguards that are a little bit more relaxed and there are others. And this is where you as an adult and a parent get to decide. I personally am a pretty relaxed lifeguard. I'm looking around and there's maybe some kids that are roughhousing, but nobody's drowning, right? But I always have my eyes on everything that's going on. So I want you to think about you as a lifeguard and what your position is, because I don't know if you follow me on social media, but I've posted a couple of pictures throughout the years of what Summer of Independence looks like at our house. When my kids are learning how to cook, it gets messy. It gets really messy. There is flour everywhere. Sometimes we have extra kids over that are learning. And so there's a lot of kids and a lot of stuff is going on. I personally have decided that that's not a problem because everything can be picked up and everything can be cleaned. And I also think it's a really good rule and life lesson that when things get messy and you've done it, that it's your responsibility to then make it go back to the status quo or the expectation that we have in the house. So, but you might not feel that way. You might say, like, I would die if I got flour all over my kitchen. That's okay. Now we know that your lifeguarding ability is you might want to be a little bit more involved. But once again, the lifeguard is not in the pool helping people swim. That's the instructor's job. And the lifeguard doesn't come in and like pick people up and move them, right? So remember that as a lifeguard, your job is to decide how you want the pool ran, but you don't go in and do it for them. That's when we have now created that space where we're doing everything for our kids. One of my clients asked me when we were going through this, she said, okay, I get what you're saying, but clothes are a huge issue in my home. I think her daughter was 6, and she was telling me my 6-year-old has very, very strong opinions about what to wear, and they very much differ from what I like her to wear. And so we talked about that. And so what she came up with was she said, okay, as my lifeguard position, what if I gave her control over what she wears when she's at home playing with friends, just having a good time. But when we're going to church or we're going out with friends to like dinner or things like that, I'm going to go ahead and tell her that I'm going to set out clothes for her to wear that I think are appropriate for those things. Great. That's your lifeguard position, right? So when we're teaching our children new things, that's what I want you to think of. If you go past a bedroom and the bed is not made up to standard, is your job to blow the whistle and get the kid right up there? Or is your job to kind of say like, they did a pretty good job today and they tried, so we're just going to let it ride. You get to decide. I like to say that at the beginning, we want to be a little bit more, just like having kids in the kiddie pool, you're going to watch a little bit better. You might call a little bit sooner. You might blow the whistle a little bit sooner. We want to do this because we talk again about expectations and really helping our children know what's expected and then how to adjust quickly. So if I go up and my daughter has stuffed her comforter underneath her bed, then and it's at first and I'm teaching her how to make the bed, I'm going to blow the whistle. I don't really have a whistle, but I call her up and I say, Stormy, let's talk about your bedroom. And this is how we're going to do correction. Now, this is my way, and you're going to figure it out for yourself, but I like to just call them up, and instead of saying, you did this wrong, I like to say, I am observing something here about your bedroom, especially your bed. What do you think it could be? Now, it's not demeaning, and it's not, I'm just curious with her. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, let's talk about where you are at with your bedroom. What do you do with your pillow? How are the sheets? And she's like, good. And I'm like, okay, what about your comforter? And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to put my comforter on my bed and pull it all the way up to the pillow and then turn it down. I'm like, yeah. Is that done here? No. What are you going to do to adjust? That's how I tell her. What are you going to do to adjust this? And then she tells me the steps that she thinks she needs to take. Once again, I can either correct in the moment and say, oh, you missed that, you're going to turn it down at the top. Or I tell her, amazing. Yes, that's exactly it. Go and do it. And then she does it. And then we talk about it. You did an amazing job. This would have been perfect to your ability level if you would have just not stuffed the comforter under the bed. You got it? She's like, yes. I'm like, way to go, kid. High five. Then we move on. So lifeguarding is important, but you want to know if you're lifeguarding intensely for the kiddie pool, which is I'm teaching my children exactly how to do this in this moment. And it's important to get feedback really quickly so we can make adjustments. Or if I'm lifeguarding for, a group of adults, or their ability level and their expectations are starting to go. And so then my job is just to remind them, occasionally I'm going to blow the whistle and just be like, hey, I see you. This is what I do now in our home, is I feel like that's the type of lifeguarding that I'm doing for most skills, right? We have a couple skills that we're still learning, but like when we go up to their rooms, I'm like, hey, I call my girls sis. I'm like, hey, sis. I'm like, I kind of see in that room that your comforter's a little off. And she's like, oh yeah, let me go get it. All right. So we've talked about abilities and expectations. We've talked about lifeguarding. The next thing that we want to talk about is consequences. So when we say consequences, oftentimes we think about negative, but consequences are also positive. Consequences are literally just what happens after you take an action or there's an inaction that happens. So let's say that consequence of making your bed is that you don't get the whistle blown on you by mom, right? You also have a clean room. You can see your floor. Like there's a lot of great consequences that happen when you make your bed. Consequences if you don't make your bed. You might not be able to find things in your room. You create a little bit of chaos in that room. And you also have the potential to have a lifeguard moment with your parents, right? So consequences are going to happen regardless. Now, I want you as a parent to think about, when are your consequences going to come into play with your children? Meaning, if you do or don't do this, I will do this, or I won't do this. So let's say that you are telling yourself, like, we have, like, okay, our children are going to make their beds every single morning. We tell them that they need to make their bed before they come down for breakfast. What happens if they don't do this? Now, I could say to them, especially my older two who have phones, I could say, like, if you don't make your bed, I'm going to take your phone away. That's totally fine. I don't care what the consequence is in your home, but I want to just kind of offer you one thing. If you set up a consequence, you need to stick to it 100% of the time. 100% of the time. This means that if I say that if my kids don't make their beds, I'm going to take their phones away, that means that even the day that they need it and they're going from place to place and I need to check up on them, I would have to take their phone away. And that's going to create circumstances for me, right? So I want you to think about those consequences really, really, really well. Because if you say, if you don't do this, you don't get screen time, and then you desperately need them to have screen time, it's taking that and telling them that it's not important. So watch the consequences that you set for your kids. We have a consequence that if your jobs aren't done, that you can't play with friends. So what happens when my child has left and then I notice that the job isn't done? That means that I need to either text the child or I need to get in my car and go and find the child. I've decided that this is something that I will do, and it can be inconvenient for both of us. Much rather send my kids away to play. I would much rather not have to get my friends or my kids and their friends out of the pool and tell my kids' friends that they need to go home because my child hasn't done the dishes. Doesn't feel great, right? But that's sometimes what I decided, that's what needs to happen. So when we talk about not playing with friends, that's what we need to do, is we need to decide, like, okay, if we're not playing with friends, does that mean I go hang out with friends in the pool for a little bit? Not the worst consequence. Or do I send everybody home and then my daughter has to be the one to go and round them all up to come and swim again? I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself, but a consequence needs to be kept 100% of the time. So most often I like to say that consequences should be small at first, regardless of age. Once again, to ability, they should be small at first, and then you should be building on top of them from there. So for instance, if a bed isn't made, what's the consequence? I don't know. Maybe you're going to tell them that they can't play with friends, or maybe you're going to do this. Well, at one point, I had one daughter that was really struggling with making her bed. And I just said, it's the summer and blankets are totally optional. She loves blankets. So she has about 40. That's an exaggeration. She probably has about 6, but she loves to have blankets on her bed. And so what I told her is, blankets are just a privilege. If you can't get all 6 blankets on your bed the way that I've shown you how, and you know how to do it, that's totally fine. I'll just take a blanket away every day until you get it figured out. So then she ended up with a pillow, a sheet, and then her like tiniest blanket that she had. And I told myself, like, that's the consequence, is she's just going to get stuff taken away. One of my daughters does makeup. The expectation is the makeup stays how she knows how organized and in this area. Well, when makeup started to make its way, I was like, not a problem. I can absolutely just take makeup away. So when her favorite foundation and her favorite mascara went missing, she like freaked out one morning. And I was like, I know, it's such a bummer. I wish and I hope, and I've done lifeguard, right? I've done some interventions of, your makeup is not where it needs to be. You should adjust and adapt that. She didn't do it, consequence. So that's what I like to do. Now, once again, you can intensify that, you can increase that, but that's usually what I find for my family is, if something's not done, it's so easy to just take it away and put it away for a little bit. Shoes are another one for another daughter. If her shoes end up in different places than her designated area, that pair of shoes just goes away. So easy. Now it's painful for them, and sometimes there's some things, but you just have to watch for yourself what's going on. Okay, so let's talk now about how to actually create the system. So you're going to start with your child's name at the top. We've already gone through that. You're going to break it down to those 3 areas. Now you're going to make that master list of and this is called a thought download of all the things that I want them to learn and grow and do. Now what I want you to do is I want you to just pick 2 off of the list. Making beds, learning how to brush teeth, learning how to wear deodorant, learning how to take a bath, learning how to shower, whatever it is, pick 2 things from each list. So you should have a total of 6 things for your child that you are going to work on this year. Let's pull up this whiteboard again. All right, so let's say that I've decided that Ocean is going to learn how to do her laundry and do her makeup. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to once again write Ocean's name. Now you don't have to, but I just like to do this. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down to daily and weekly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those 6 things that you have circled or highlighted for this one child, and you're going to tell yourself, okay, what do they need to learn how to do or do daily? So for instance, weekly is laundry. Laundry is not something that Ocean needs to do every single day, but it is something that we need to work on once a week. Now she does need to work on her bathroom daily. And she is going to work on her hair/makeup daily. And dishes. Dishes is absolutely something that we're going to work on daily. Now, weekly, she is going to work on learning about jobs and photography. So now what I've done is I've created the system where, once again, 2, 3, 4, 5. So which one are we missing? 1, 2. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yes, we got 6. Okay. So now I have 6 things here that I want Ocean to do. And now I know that there are 3 things that she's going to do daily and 3 things that she's going to do weekly. Your list might look different. You might have 4 things on the daily list and 2 things on the weekly list. Totally fine. Now what I want you to do is I want you to create the system around this. So I want you to think about, when is this going to be best for your child and for you? So I might say to myself, okay, well, I work in the mornings. And so I want Ocean to do these while she is working. Everything that is daily needs to be done while I'm working. Our children are not allowed to hang out with friends or go and do things or have their phones or screens until they get this list done. So I want you to think about the list and think about, for your own family, what your family dynamic looks like. Now, the other things on the list, weekly, Ocean should be doing her laundry while I'm working. But learning about jobs and photography, these are things that she can do throughout the day. And what we're going to do is just create a day that she's going to do these. And so we've actually had this conversation. She wants to do learning about jobs on Tuesday, and she'd like to just kind of pick a day that she does this. So she said that she'd like to kind of do more intense photography work on Thursdays, but she said she'll probably do a lot of that throughout the week. But she says Thursdays are going to be her days that she is scheduling a photo shoot or doing things like that. Okay. So, and then once again, laundry, she wanted to do on Mondays. All right. So now I know that the daily things are going to be done in the morning, and then the weekly things are going to be done. Now, what if I need to teach her something? So let's say that on this list, Ocean needs to learn how to make 3 meals. And this includes me. I have to be the one to teach her, or I have to be the one to observe and be that kind of intense lifeguard for a little bit. Now I want to think about my time. This isn't about her, and when it's convenient for her, it comes now as a parent to me. Maybe I have littles that go and nap in the afternoon. And so cooking with this daughter would be perfect right at 12. So maybe we're going to pick on Wednesdays at 12, we're going to cook together, and I'm going to show you how to do this. I know that anything that comes to me teaching is not going to be in the mornings because that's the time that I'm working. So I'm not going to expect my daughter to learn how to cook on Wednesday mornings. That's not going to work out for us. So I'm going to create specific times, and it's going to go on both of our calendars. We love to use a whiteboard in our home. So we have a Summer of Independence whiteboard where everything is available for our kids to look at and do. And I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit. I'll share it in a PDF because it makes such a difference. So I'm going to put on the whiteboard for Ocean, make 3 meals, and I'm going to put Mom on there because this is something that she's going to be learning with me. And we're going to put Wednesday at 12 p.m. is when cooking lessons with Mom happens. So let's say Ocean is also at the age where she's learning how to drive. And so we're going to say that she's going to learn about the cars with Dad on Monday night at 7. So now what we've done is we've created this space where she's learning how to do some more things. She's learning how to actually increase her ability level with cooking and car maintenance, and she's doing it with help. Your kids can't do this on their own, and they won't do it on their own because things happen. So you have to actually look at your amount of children you're doing this with, your time, and you have to decide for yourself when this is going to make the most sense. Okay. So then that's going to go on the whiteboard. So now we have what we're looking for, what we're learning how to do. And then because my kids have been doing this for so long, they know what is expected of them. All right. So let's talk about the whiteboard really quickly. So when we create a whiteboard, what I love to do is I love to create basically this list right here with Ocean. I like to create it for all of my kids. So Ocean is one of them. And so she'll have this. I'll have daily what to do. I'll have weekly what to do. And then I'll have our actually teaching system of when are you learning the next thing that you need to learn. So then I'll do it the same thing for Nolly. I'll have daily, weekly, teaching. Same thing for Stormy, right? So this is what our whiteboard looks like. Daily, weekly, teaching. So when they wake up in the morning, our whiteboard, our Summer of Independence whiteboard is in our office. And when it is the summer, it comes out and we put it somewhere where everyone can see it, where it is local, central to our home. So that when they are thinking about, are their jobs done so they can play with friends? Have they shown up for themselves the way that they want to and done the things that they need to? They need to look at the list. They also need to look at the list so that Wednesdays at 12, they're not out hanging out with friends because they have set an appointment. And that's what I'm teaching my kids. I'm teaching my kids how to show up when they say they're going to do something. So let's say that Ocean has decided to go swimming with her friends on a Wednesday at 12. She needs to cancel 24 hours in advance. Now I have older kids, right? 15, 13, 10. So my 10-year-old is just learning how to schedule and show up for things, but ability and expectation for my older two is that they absolutely have to cancel 24 hours in advance, just like I have to do with my clients. So let's say that she gets a call Wednesday at 10. Well, she has to then say, so sorry, I have an appointment. Can I meet you at 2 at the pool? So we're learning, we're learning skills of how to show up, and that's important for you to do. Okay. Funnest part about this is that now what I have on my whiteboard, because we've been doing this for so long, is I actually have a new spot for my whiteboard. And what I have now on my whiteboard is I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in each of these areas is every single thing that they can make by themselves. And what they get to do is they get to choose what so breakfast and lunch, we say you are on your own. Now, my kids have gotten super smart. And what they have done is they've created a system of, I'm just going to put a couple of examples here, but what they have done is they've created a system where they help each other out. And so I might have one kid that says, hey, will you make breakfast this morning? And I'll make you and I lunch. And so then they do that. And so it's really fun to watch how they work this out, because I really tell them breakfast and lunch is on your own. So you need to be in charge of preparing it, getting it, eating it, and putting it away. If that's not done, then of course there's consequences to it. Now, dinner is things that we have learned how to make that they can make for the full family. So they have nights that they are going to rotate and be in charge of making food. So they can make pot pies, they can make enchiladas, they can make steak and potatoes. What else do they like to make? They can make pizza. So this is what we're doing with our kids, is we're just creating this space where they know exactly how to do this, right? And it makes such a difference for them. So then they can come to the whiteboard and they can look and say like, okay, I'm making breakfast for me and my two sisters, and I'm going to do pancakes today. Or my sister made me pancakes this morning, so I'm in charge of lunch for both of us. I'm going to make sandwiches. But what it does is it creates this space where I'm not having to be the one, which I've noticed myself that this was the one like thing that just drove me nuts, is when people come up, my family comes up and says like, I'm hungry, I don't know what to eat. Or I'm starving, what should I, or what are you going to make us? And I'm like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I don't even know what I'm eating. Why should I know what you're eating? So taking that off my plate was a huge thing for me. So now having the Summer of Independence board where they know they're in charge of their own breakfast and lunch. And then on the weekends, like I'll make breakfast on Saturday or Sunday, but not both. So that's really important for us. My neighbor loves to cook. And so she's like, oh, it's not a big deal. I can totally make all the food for my family all the time. She's amazing at it, by the way. But for me, that was a big headache. It continues to be something that I want to learn how to do myself. And so that's why we're creating this space of like, they might love to cook. My second one loves to cook. And so she's found a passion around learning how to cook. Now, I want to talk to you just really briefly about something that comes up a lot in the kitchen, which is appliances. So once again, you want to look at appliances as ability levels. So you might not want your kid to be cooking on an open gas stove right away, your 4-year-old. You might not want your 4-year-old using a knife to cut things, but we want to once again start with ability levels. So a couple of tips here. Number one is I love a good microwave and teaching how to use the microwave properly. So, no tin foil, no plastic, things like that. But that's a really great starting point. Another really great starting point is a griddle. So something that can absolutely be plugged in. So I like to start with kind of smaller appliances. Toaster is another thing. And what we're teaching our kids is how to get something out, how to plug it in, and then how to unplug it and let it cool off and then put it away. That's a skill set that you're teaching. So you want to break it down that easily. So for instance, when I had I think she was 2 at the time, my 2-year-old niece, I would have her get out like the cord for the griddle. That's the first step. So she was in charge of the cord. And then my daughter that was 4 was in charge of getting the griddle out and putting it up. So that is things that we're teaching our kids step by step. So like I said, I like to start with smaller appliances. So the toaster, the microwave, and a griddle. You can actually make a lot of food through that. So start with smaller things and then build on that. So once again, with the oven, when they start with the oven, you're going to be a really like overly anxious lifeguard. You're going to talk about the dangers of it and what to do and how to use it properly, the proper equipment to use with it. And it's all just based on where is the foundation, where is the ability, and then how am I going to build from that? If you have a microwave that's a little bit taller, sometimes what I like to do is just work on getting my kids so that they can prepare for whatever. Like if they're having like pizza pockets, I want to teach them how to get it ready, and then I might be the one to put it in the microwave. So they might need a little bit extra help for a while until I'm ready for them to learn how to. I either take the microwave out, and this is what I did when my kids were little. I took the microwave out of where it was because it wasn't on the wall, and I just stuck it on like a little tiny like coffee table. And that's how they learned how to use the microwave, is they just used it at the coffee table for that time. And then once again, when they grew up and they transitioned, then we moved it to the counter. And now we have it in our space in our home that is above. One of my daughters is almost tall enough, so sometimes she has to push over a little thing. Okay. All right. So I hope this has been helpful. What questions do you have? Now, I know this is a recording, but I absolutely know that you're going to come up against a couple of questions. And so I want you to come to Instagram and just either follow me or come and find me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching. And there's a lot of underscores in there. So it's like drive underscore your underscore. So Drive Your Thoughts Coaching. And I want you to start to come with all of your questions. What questions do you have about Summer of Independence? Where did you make your list, but you're worried about the next step? For the next like May and June, I want you to come with all of your questions. Please don't hesitate to put them in the DMs, put it on a comment. I want to help you because, like I said, this has made the biggest difference in our lives. I just want to kind of offer, like, during the pandemic, my husband and I, our work actually went crazy. I had a lot of people that wanted coaching. My husband was trying to keep their business going with his company. And so we actually got more busy, but we had all of our kids home full time. And so as they were navigating doing school online, and then I put my kids in charge of different things. So I had a kid that was making dinner every night. I had one kid that was helping with homework. I had another kid that was kind of filling in the gaps where we could not fill those gaps in. And so that was so important. It was important for us to know that our kids could do the things. It's also important because my kids are now really, really confident in doing new things and trying things. And I think that that's my favorite thing that they've learned, is confidence to go and try and figure things out. So your list is going to look small at first. Now, when I share my list with you, I want you to know that this was based on years and years, a decade of Summer of Independence. So now having a 15, 13, and 10-year-old, the thing that I want to offer is I've noticed that they all do things differently. My 13-year-old might have a huge, like a 10 on expectation on one area, and she might be a 2 somewhere else. But I never judge my kids against each other ever, because I know that they have different hobbies and abilities, and that they're learning and growing from different spaces. Now, this doesn't mean that our home is perfect ever. I'm not even going to say all of the time, because that's never happened. And anybody that's watching this that knows me personally knows this about our family. We are pretty relaxed in what we do, and we don't hit the marks every single time. But what I do know about the system is that it's created a space for my kids to learn and grow and do things and be able to contribute not only to our family, but to our neighborhood and their cousins and things that would never have happened if we didn't start this. I've noticed that my oldest daughter shows up better at school. She's more willing to have conversations and dialogue and things like that at school. She's more willing to ask questions and not feel like she's bad or that it's wrong to ask questions. So I want you to think about how you show up and what you're teaching in your own home. If you have that thing that everything needs to be perfect, maybe that works for you, and that's great. But then how are you turning around and teaching your kids that? Because that's one of the things that I noticed with one of my clients. She actually had me talk to her kids because she was like, it's not working, it's not working. And so I got on the phone with all of her kids. I was like, okay, what's happening? And one of them said, it's just a big disappointment all day long. And he's like, I'm anxious all day because it's not going to meet my mom's expectations. And then she's going to be disappointed. And then she might be even a little resentful because we're not getting it. Now, that's not the type of place that we're going to foster for our kids, of like really creating independent kids, because once again, we're showing them that they can never get it right instead of going back to ability level and thinking about, okay, what's the most important thing right now? Is it for me to really dial in and hone in on this ability and hold them really accountable to it? Or is it to have an ability and watch them try and then make sure to acknowledge what happened right then? So glad you went and made your bed. That's amazing. You didn't do that last week. That's awesome. And then tomorrow you're going to say, remember yesterday when you made your bed? I bet you can do it better today. I love being able to teach. I love being able to show people how to create independence. As a woman that teaches adults how to go all in on their goals and dreams, I can tell you that the one skill set that is so needed is learning how to show up and take action, even when you don't know if it's right or you think it's going to fail, and then going and doing it again. And that is essentially what we're teaching our kids through this. So I know that this is really long and comprehensive, but I hope that you have taken away some of the things that you can do to help. Now, if there's a gap that you're like, wait, you really didn't cover this, come on over to Instagram. If I see that a lot of people have this same question, what I'll do is I'll do like an Instagram live or something so that we can go over it together. But I am here for you through the whole summer. So come message me, Instagram me, leave me a voice note. I don't care, but I really want to help you through this. So let's get our kids independent and let's start with 6 things this summer. All right. Talk to you guys all soon. Bye.